Mr. Adam Slutskin, how are you?
Mr. Lancaster, how are you, sir?
Well, we navigated our technical difficulties. I'm coming to you from Las Vegas, the big Channel Partners event, and you're coming to us from your living room. It sounds like, or looks like.
I'm coming from the living room and my iPhone because, for whatever reason, I could not get my audio to display. So it was a quick ad lib, but yeah, really glad to be here, man. Catch up with you. We haven't chatted in a little bit, and you guys
Yeah,
have been super busy with the channel company, and certainly Dave Bellini and I, we've been pretty busy building out CyberFOX.
yeah. I see that, and we'll certainly get to this. But one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is that I'm fortunate that I get to speak to a lot of key influencers, I'd say pioneers, just I don't know, just very important people in this industry. And I put you right at the top of the list. And I think one of the reasons why is I really enjoy our conversations. Whenever we chat, I mean, we'll eventually get around to technology, but normally it's about baseball cards, comic books, you know, just you know, just stuff, right? Just other stuff. And you're always just really I don't know, really gracious with your time. And I enjoy our conversation. So I'm glad to have you on here.
Yeah, one thing I'd love to sit on that point, man. A bunch of us were catching up over the last few days. There's always so much going on, in particular in our industry, the channel. And there's some really cool articles I'm helping co-create that I just think the story about the channel and about, forget the tech for a minute, the people. And I always try
Yeah.
to tell everyone, like these big PE firms that are like, oh, should we come in, into the MSP space? And the things I always want to talk about have nothing to do with technology or spreadsheets. It's like, you've got to understand our channel before you really think you want to come in. Because here's what it is. Like, like how you and I like to talk, vendors like to talk to vendors, MSPs like to talk to MSPs, MSPs like to talk to vendors, vendors like to talk to MSPs. We
Yeah.
like to communicate. I've never
Yeah.
been in another ecosystem like it, and I love it. I love the way we like to share information and chat.
Yeah. I'm
We
with
just
you. I
shoot
mean,
the shit. Yeah.
yeah, you're right. From just the experience of being out the events, being on the road and reconnecting, but then down at the MSP level, right? I mean, the surgence, I think it's an understatement of peer groups, right, and the connectivity. And I think I've sat in on quite a few and moderated peer groups, and often it's similar, right? The first,
Yeah.
it's called icebreaker or whatever, but the first half hour are just how you doing, right? What's going on in your life? What's going on
How's the
in
family?
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, yeah, to your point. I mean, I think that's what, I'm sure that is throughout other industries, but I think there's an element of that that's pretty unique to
I
our
think it's
industry, pretty
extremely unique.
special.
It's. I've been in those other industries. It's extremely unique to this one, and I embrace it, and I think it's great. And I tell people, man, if you don't get a thick skin, and we all live on TV, and like, look at it this way: how many of the leaders of these different MSPs or vendors like know each other very intimately?
Hmm.
You don't see that in the other
Right.
ecosystem. It
Yeah.
doesn't come close.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes us unique, and it's the people component. And then besides that, we all just love geeking out on technology.
That's
You know,
right. Yep. Well, what I want to do is because you've had a very prolific uh, career in this space, and it's spanned several years, a couple decades, right? Um, and you touch so many elements or aspects of this industry. I think as an advisor to MSPs, you've got a really really interesting. We'll kind of touch on it, but you really interesting uh, group of channel sales leaders that you bring together and help facilitate their interaction and help them with their success. You're obviously, you spent quite a bit of time at some of the bigger platforms and great exits. You've invested in, I don't know, I mean, countless companies and it's served advisors, countless companies. So I think you have a really unique perspective in this space. But I want to jump back because I know before this whole tech career, you had another career, maybe a couple careers, but I know about the military career. So maybe kind of take us through early days of Adam and kind of military background and what led you down this path to technology.
Yeah, I love meeting the other vets in the space too. We kind of find a way to find each other. You know, I'm always very candid in my own path. I was a high school dropout, was kind of lost. For some reason, the Air Force would take me. At that time, they needed people. Today, it's very hard to get into the military, as I've learned with my oldest son. They're pretty strict. They almost want you to have college degrees now. But I
Yeah.
was able to get in with without a high school diploma. With making a commitment, I would get one in when I joined. I was an electrician initially at the presidential base, which was pretty cool being exposed to that, and you know, into the politics at a very young age. But I was a horrible electrician. If there's, you know, 5 million electricians in the world, I was probably 4,999. You know, I was a
Oh,
bad electrician. But luckily, I was pretty good at playing soccer, so I was able to try out and not be an electrician a lot. I played a lot of soccer on temporary duty, and then I got into flying, where I was pretty good. And I was able to do that for almost 22 years. Learned a lot about leadership. Got my butt kicked by a lot of senior people to me that really helped get me on the right path. And was able to learn, you know, a good bit about leadership and about selflessness, which you have to be learn about liking your job and not making a lot of money. For any other vets that see this, and being proud of what you did every day. You know, pride of ownership, I call it, and then trying to
yeah,
translate that into the into the civilian world and into the corporate world. You know, I think they've really been married good together. Anybody that's ever read Simon Sinek, I'm preaching to the choir. You know, when I found Simon, I was like, oh my God, there's a guy who can articulate these relationships between the military and between the corporate world. And I'm a big fan of his. And anybody else that's in the military, I think, would agree with me. There's a lot in common there, a lot that we can benefit from being in both.
yeah, yeah. It's I was fortunate enough to grow up as a military brat. My dad was in the Navy, and so I know oftentimes a lot of military personnel have a hard time transitioning from military to active duty to civilian life. And funny, I was speaking playing an old parts hockey league, and guy's a retired Air Force General, Jeff Johnson, and yeah, I talked to him quite a bit about just leadership. He coaches like youth hockey as well, and really neat perspective of like the kind of the military, you know, uh, disposition or kind of intentional leadership and how that translates out into the civilian world. And a lot of people have a hard time with that. But I mean, do you have a challenge, I guess, transitioning out and then kind of finding your way? I mean, was
Well,
that
it
easy for
wasn't
you?
as challenging for me because I had gone from active full time to active reserve, you know, and then after 9/11, you know, I flew with my unit out of New York, and that was a tough day for a lot of people. But coming out of after that, you know, really decided that I was going to double down on my corporate career. So for me, it wasn't as bad. I would say when I got out of the active, my first 4 years, I did active before I moved into flying active reserve. And I would say that, you know, look, it's for, you know, I do counsel and talk to a lot of vets. You know, it's like this, where do I go from now? You know, what do I do? You know, the military it's a unique, own closed kind of ecosystem. And then it's like, okay, you're like out there in the wild. And finding that first thing to do was challenging. But for me, it was, hey, I'm going to go do full-time education. I went and got my college degree. You know, went to Sacramento State in California, and you know, flew active reserves, and you know, and just found a way to do both. And then when I was ready, I knew after 22 years it was time for me to be done with the military and to focus on my professional career, starting in around 2005. You know, and that's
Awesome.
kind of where I've been full time since then. You
Yeah,
know.
so what was the first I guess job that in the channel in and around technology? What was kind of the first foot in?
Well, my first one was actually before I went into the military. My dad always owned a company in New York and Lower Manhattan, supporting all the banks, and they had a lot of application development. I wasn't a techie kid by any means, but I was a tape pool operator at the Bank of New York on the lower skyline of New York. And then one day I decided, man, I got to go get my degree and figure out a path in my life. And I went up to Times Square. Anybody that's ever been there, and there's a little iconic recruiting station, and I joined the military. And then after that, you know, when I really started in my corporate career was 1997. And, I used to be a business analyst, working through my father's company, doing, guess what? All the pre-work for Y2K and working on some application development for a system for Chase. They were building a new foreign exchange application. And that was the beginning of me really getting into tech, fully immersed and working with developers. And then from there, decided that I really felt that I could do really well in technology sales and moved over to the sales side at a company called Broadwing, which competed against like WorldComs and everybody else in about, I think that was 98 or 99. And that's kind of where I've been ever since. Then I was blessed to find this channel in 2004. No, not 2004, 2008, where I met Bill Falk at Kaseya. And I think it was like employee about 60, which the relevance then didn't mean as much as I think where we are now. And I got to be a part of Kaseya there in some of the early days, bring in about, I think, 20 people, early on the sales. And a lot of them stayed there for almost 10 years. But I then did move over to ConnectWise, which at that time I think was a better fit for me in like 2009, and stayed there almost 9 years. Was once again, I think like employee 70, something like that. And when you look at these companies today, and now there are thousands of people, it's kind of cool looking back saying, hey, you were there early and maybe help, make an impact there.
Yeah,
It's
no,
a lot of fun.
absolutely. But I think you're glossing, I think, over how much of impact, at least talking with others, how much of impact you had at ConnectWise, and how vital you were in kind of the growth, right? You hear about this success story, and obviously you're very good friends with David and Arnie and the Bellini brothers, but you drove a lot of the sales of that organization.
Yeah, it
At
was
least,
fun when we started.
yeah.
We were about a 3-person sales team, revenue team-ish, and then by the end, we had about 300. It was fun, and we'd open up worldwide offices, and we were able to grow by the time I left, at that time it was 12 million to around 200 million, and then we exited to Thoma Bravo. But equally exciting is working with the early stage. What I decided is I really like the early stage and the challenge of building. And, I think that's what was exciting about early Kaseya, early ConnectWise, and then really, helping to build LineGuard, from, we had about 7 customers and working with Joe Alapat and Vincent and Sean Saylor and everybody over there, and really building out a cool company. And then, and then being an advisor to all the different companies and working with the MSPs. And then really getting a chance to do this, to be an owner, and then I think about that journey and where I try to coach is, I'm just very candid. I was a high school dropout. I was lost. I wasn't a bad kid. I was a lost kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I was smart enough to join the military, which helped me find my path. But I just think about that journey from, when I was that high school dropout, and then being able to wrap up as an owner, and different challenges that for anyone I ever work with, I feel you now a little bit more. I get it. I get it. It's different, especially when you're writing those checks against your own money. But it's just been an awesome journey, and I love this channel. I thank it for everything and all the friends, and I think it's amazing the stuff we're doing. It blows my mind. Look, there's competitors. I have competitors. You have competitors. Kaseya's, ConnectWise's. I was always on both sides of those, and now I get to work with Ninja, who I'm really just a big giant fan of. And so other early startups like Lumu. I'm not doing advertisements, but in case you do, work with some of them, it's fun being a part of seeing them on their journey. But how about all the MSPs, Kevin? Oh my God! Like I think of, I'm going to throw one out there. No particular plug. Chris Jan. Love working with Medicus. They're a great MSP. I
Yeah.
remember when we started working with Medicus when he was about 10 employees. Now he's nationwide and has hundreds and hundreds of employees, and his journey, and so many MSPs that have journeys like that, man.
Yeah.
It's just that's this ecosystem. We're all
Yeah.
a bunch of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. If anybody follows you, I think one of the things I really appreciate about when you post is that, again, I think you're very, you know, uh, how to describe this. You don't publicly take a lot of credit for, I think, a lot of the success that you've created for yourself, but that you've created for others. And I think that's highlighted by a lot of the posts that you put out there on LinkedIn. A lot of your posts are about, supporting others, especially, you talk about emerging companies, but also, when you're bringing in new talent into organizations, and how you can uplift, newer people to the industry, and the front end of your career. So I see that constant thread, and I know it's subconscious, but probably partly intentional, that a lot of your posts are really about giving back, helping others, and it kind of transcends the work that you do with the vendors and the MSPs, and I think it's at a time where you've experienced it, right? You've seen a couple of the you know the the companies that were budding into major platforms. They had that massive rise, the ConnectWise, the Kaseya's, over the last dozen and a half years, something like that. But then the market's maturing, and you bring kind of that experience right at the right time, where private equities come into the vendor side, it's come into the MSP side, and there's really like a maturing and kind of truing up of this marketplace. And so it's I think you have a really unique perspective.
I
Uh,
appreciate that. I think it's important, though, that we're all stewards of it, because I really do believe, look, business is business. We can argue that all day long, but we are a unique channel. The way we think, the way we're wired, the way we compete, the way we're friends. We have frenemies, and the whole ecosystem. It's just so different. I think, you know, we all play our part in it. And my part is I've had a chance to be able to work with these larger PE firms, and even the middle and the earlier stage ones, is to help try to evangelize that you got to really understand the differences of who we are if you really want to be successful. And there's some that I think still have some learning to do. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I think there's certain reasons why some of them are not as successful as others. And being okay with understanding, like contract terms. We could talk about that all day long. We could talk about, how they like to buy. We could talk about month to month. We can talk about the different challenges that that the MSPs face, and where we got to be sensitive to that, and how do we work together, because it's a partnership, and ultimately our technology is going through down to the end user, and we have to care about them as well. And so it's a very challenging relationship and mission that we're all on. And I think it's important that we all understand it, embrace it, and teach others. And look, not everyone's going to make it, and sometimes you can't predict the ones that just aren't. You can just see it; they don't get it,
sure.
and that's okay. And then the last point on that is, you know, Kevin, let's think about it. We go back not that far, 12 years. How many vendors were really calling MSPs? 20,
Hmm.
maybe 20, right?
Right.
Not much more or less. Today, I think we all estimate the number to be anywhere from 2 to 300. And if the average MSP is still somewhere average, is somewhere around 15 to 20, employees, and now you have 2 to 300 vendors, and some of those vendors have multiple different people calling you. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to be sensitive to that. We have to figure out what is the best way to communicate. And look, we all have competitors, and we're all going to vie for the business. And I get that. That's awesome. I'm a capitalist. But I think we do have to understand, like, it's still a 15 to 20 person average size company with
Yeah.
300 vendors now calling on them. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the math is challenged there for sure. And so I imagine on the MSP side, it's pretty daunting when you go to a trade show, and then you've got hundreds of vendors knocking on your door next Tuesday, right? Um, so let's
Yeah.
get into, so start with the companies that you advise or invest in. You know, what do you look for? I don't know if it's a financial metric,
People.
if it's a technology, is it people?
Yeah,
You know,
people, and are, what are they trying to solve for? So sometimes I think, again, as the vendor side, we have to be very cognizant of customer experience, because guess what? Our partners, right? They live in the world of delivering customer experience. So
Mhm.
for me, I'm looking for that like-minded thing. Are they really passionate, one, about the channel, about our ecosystem? Are they passionate about people? They really want to try to make an impact, do something good. Not just chasing the bottom line. Hey, man, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to build it. I'm going to jam it down people's throats, and I'm going to try to get an exit. Right?
Right.
I'm not interested in that. You
Right.
know, and that, they really are trying to solve for a problem. And it's okay if you're building, I think, a different mousetrap, if it can really improve upon maybe what's out there, which is good, because then it forces the incumbents to look at their own products and say, hey, look, there's this new player out in the space, and they're doing some really cool stuff. We've got to go ahead and up our game. And I think what happens is that bodes very well for for the MSPs, because we all have to continue to improve the products that we have. So those are the things. It's always people. Are they solving a unique challenge? Are they passionate about it? Do they commit to culture? I'm not a boiler room person. Anyone that knows me or work with me, I'm just not that. I'm more into staying power, and hire the right people, get them in the right seat, and let's build something. Let's go get it together, and let's have a work family culture. And I get it.
Yeah.
You're not all going to agree with me, and that's okay. I'm okay with all of us having a different approach, but I am committed to those things, and I will never deviate from that. Never.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, again, I think it's testament to a lot of folks I speak with, in and around the channel that have interacted or worked for you, have worked with you. Yeah, echo that same sentiment. You spend a lot of time, as mentioned early on, you've got essentially, I don't know if you call it a peer group, you've got a working group of sales professionals in the industry that you guys get together and to share best practices or what have you. But kind of maybe talk about that group, and then you've been very successful in hiring the right salespeople and helping them mature in their sales career. Sounds like at least externally seems like you do a lot of studying of sales methodologies and motivations and just strategies around sales. So I could talk through some of that if you don't mind.
Yeah, the group has been fun. I mean, I give a shout out to a lot of people, Alex Farling and Charlie Tomeo and, Brian at Crush Bank. We were the early ones, and we talked about creating this peer group where like-minded Jeff Benedetti, I could just go on and on. It's just a good group. And then we get together. It's hollow ground, I guess is the term, where,
Mhm.
we have some competitors. I have one of my own kind of competitors that also participates. It's Safe Haven, where we just talk about best practices. We talk about events. Imagine that. Which are the right ones? Which are the bad? So we talk about a lot of things. We talk about hiring. We talk about incentive, compensation, all those things that kind of go with revenue. So that's been a fun group. I think there's 40 or 45 of us, and we get together once a month. We have a Slack channel, and I think we're still like really perfecting it. But the feedback has been great. Like, everybody wants to be a part of it when they can participate. By the way, I'll keep going as I just remember some names. Sean Saylor. Sean, thanks. Sean was one of the early guys. But we're just enjoying getting together and having a place where revenue leaders can talk about. And by the way, you have to be a revenue leader inside the MSP channel. So that's been really going good. Methodologies, I think, like a lot of us, we've been exposed to a lot of different methodologies. I can't say I'm a giant fan of any one. I think what I like to do is read, study, watch, make mistakes, adjust fast, and then in the end, just be extremely transparent, be genuine, never BS anybody, and create models that align between the company's goals and the people's goals, right? Sales is tough for anybody that watches this. We know in sales, like anything, it has its own unique pressures. Our success is short lived. You chase a target for 30 days or a quarter, and then you're back to zero, and
Mhm.
so it's Groundhog Day, man. And it takes I think, a unique understanding of that. I understand it. I did it, and I appreciate it. And I understand everyone that does it, whether you're a competitor or not. It's a tough gig. My
Yeah.
advice is always try to do it the right way. Never BS. Be straight. Say no when you need to. And even for competitors, I'm experiencing a little bit of this myself right now. And it's like, we can all be competitors. We don't have to be enemies. We can be frenemies. And I do believe that is kind of the nice thing of the channel. The more we can avoid that, I think we have to be respectful of the MSP. Does have those 200 or 300 vendors that they have to navigate. I think there's enough for everybody to be successful, and even those vendors that compete. And I just want to let you know, if any of my competitors are watching, hey, I do want to definitely win, certainly, but I do respect the fact that you also offer good alternatives, and that for some people you will be a better alternative, and I need to be okay with that. We all
Yeah,
need to be okay with that.
yeah, absolutely. And then in the end, right? I mean, that's ultimately what benefits the MSP, which is, what we're all here to do. So let's get into what you're doing today, because you talked about moving fast, pivoting fast, being quick on your toes, I guess. But CyberFOX is moving exceptionally fast. Um, it's just like you guys launched, and now you're a rocket ship. So first, I guess give us a background. Like what is CyberFOX, and where what do you guys do?
CyberFOX is interesting how it came together. I was working with a couple early stage vendors, um, Auto Elevate and Password Boss, and got to know Steve Wise
Hmm.
and Todd, and then just through that relationship, both had come to me separately. They didn't know each other, and said, "Hey, I think I'm looking for an exit." And I'd reached out to Dave Bellini. Dave and I had always talked about one last great, hurrah, And I said, Dave, we should acquire Password Boss, and it'll give us a chance to work with our sons. I had worked with my dad, and I thought, Dave having that same experience I had would be really cool. And
Wow.
so we bought Password Boss, and my oldest son did work there in support. And Dave's oldest son, who now basically runs ops, he's brilliant, Anthony. Um, and it gave us that. And then Auto Elevated said, hey, we think we're ready for, bringing, bringing on, having an exit, bringing on somebody that can take it to the next level. And I said, hey, Dave, let's build a cybersecurity platform. And so we acquired Auto Elevate and then rebranded into CyberFOX. And it's just been amazing. There was two people. Today I think we're 60 something people.
Wow.
I'm back in my old office, the same floor where I built the ConnectWise revenue team. ConnectWise had moved to a new headquarters, and they were very kind to let us keep all the furniture, which saves, everybody knows, a lot of money, guys.
Heck yeah.
And so it's kind of weird. I'm on that same floor where I had this really cool experience of helping to build out, ConnectWise, and now we're building out CyberFOX. And we have some really interesting news coming up. We have some really very well-known names. Stay tuned. We're bringing on. Going to be adding a very interesting person here. You'll see it Monday. And then we have some new products that we're rolling out over the next few months. And then, of course, you never can forget the core. Please, MSPs, we hear you. It's great if you bring new stuff on. You better take care of the core products. That's a reminder to all of us. And
Yeah.
we have some big enhancements and new versions coming out over the next 60 days of our core products, Auto Elevate. And so it's just exciting. And then having these new ones that we'll be able to launch that we think will be beneficial. And it has been a little humbling how fast we've grown. Nobody, I think, you can ever expect, that's going to happen. And we're extremely thankful to the MSPs that do let us be their partner. And it's been awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a testament to the fact that you've been there. You've seen, a lot of things work, a lot of things, not work so well. And sounds like you guys put together kind of the right strategy, structure, team, and technologies. So I know I almost thought we were going to get like a big scoop here, but I guess we have to wait until Monday for the big
I
announcement,
will
huh?
get, yeah, I'll get killed if I don't wait till Monday. I'm a
Uh,
little too transparent. I'm reminded sometimes, but it is exciting. I mean, the main thing is I'm not doing it just to be weird, but commitments to certain people. But yeah, it is exciting and it is fun, and we're just one of many. And I look around the ecosystem, and I go to the shows, and I'm like, you see companies like Roost. Even I'm just randomly going around. If I don't mention it, I apologize. But there's just so many companies that are, just popping up so fast, and you just hear it from the MSPs doing some real cool stuff. Thread, which used to be Chat Genie,
yeah.
and if anybody read that white paper that Microsoft wrote about them, no, Microsoft, hey Kevin, Microsoft's never written a white paper about anything I've been involved in. So I mean, that's got to be cool for those guys, and it's just really
Yeah.
neat. And there's just so many other vendors that are just really solving for cool stuff and are just doing great things.
Yeah, I
I'm
know
blown
that.
away by it.
Yeah, I know the Thread guys are up in. I think they're out of New York, right?
Yeah.
But what's going on in Tampa? Like Tampa is, I spent a lot of time in Tampa, going back to the old
You've been in our
Namara.
office. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to those offices, and I mean, yeah, you're very fortunate. You got nice view, great floor there, great offices. But I was saying, like, going back maybe 10, 15 years ago, we started working with a company called Numara
Yeah.
software and Sunview software, and and knew that there was kind of seeds of really interesting technologies in the Tampa area. But now, if you look at the technology scene, particularly the MSP space, it might be a lot of just a lot of great people were built up in ConnectWise and gone on and do their own things. But it's like Tampa is a booming technology hub
For the
now.
MSP ecosystem, it's kind of weird. And I think we all saw that in San Francisco. You go back and everybody's graduating from Stanford and, AOL and Yahoo, and they all kind of kept spreading out. And it's not just ConnectWise because, people forget. I started at Kaseya. We had a pretty big office here at some point in those early days, before Insight had acquired them. And, I forget the exact total, but we had, I don't know, 25, 30 people. Apologize, my number is a little off. It had gotten pretty sizable. And then a lot of those people spread out into different things. Of course, ConnectWise is a big one, but Ninja is right here in the Tampa region as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in their office, they now have about 200 people. Then you have
Wow.
ThreatLocker, right? One of my competitors. They're down the road in Orlando, about an
Mm-hmm.
hour, and we could keep going. And then what you're seeing is a lot of people that did spin off for these that are working for countless companies,
Yeah.
for QuickPass, some of the people that I had a chance to work with, like Cynthia at Lion Guard. And now those people have spun off, and the John Fries and John's at PAX 8, and there's just all these different groups where there's a lot of presence for these MSP. And Arnie's back and, with Connect Secure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Formerly Cyber CNS, and then there's other ones that have presences here like, oh God, I'm just blanking on the name, but it'll come to me. But there's just so much going on here, and it's really kind of cool to see. I don't think there's another area or region that has this much diverse MSP specific, focus. You
Yeah.
know, it's pretty
Yeah.
cool, man. And a lot of them just come through the ConnectWise office. We have open space. Anybody can ever come in and use our space. We've probably had 10 or 15 different vendors use our site, our office as an offsite to do their offsite meetings or take some temporary space while they were launching. And by the way, I'm just going to keep remembering names like Marketopia is right down the road.
Yeah.
There's just so many. And so if I forgot you again, I apologize. There's just a lot.
Yeah. So you got a couple comments in here. I think here's let's see. Here's Bobby saying thanks for the shout out. You got John Schneider saying woo, and then giving props to Mr. Fry. And then you've been reminded by Danielle not to spoil the excitement.
I know.
So
I know.
I know
Yep,
I know she's all over you. She's keeping you straight here.
they do.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really great. It's actually really yesterday I had an opportunity to reconnect with Andra Hedden. I guess she'd been out on maternity leave, and
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a trooper. She took a early morning flight from Tampa into Vegas. Had lunch with her. She was up on the stage. She had a panel spot, and then she turned around and flew right back to Tampa same day. So I remember doing that 20 years ago, maybe into San Francisco. I remember how much of a wreck I was, the following day. I can't imagine, being, 2 months off, you know, a month off maternity leave, whatever, and doing that. So
It
yeah,
doesn't.
amazing.
It doesn't surprise me. She's a go getter. Her and Terry, have really built something from scratch. Good friend of
Yeah,
mine there who I got to work with, ConnectWise, Dexter Williams. One of the revenue leaders there.
sure. Yeah.
Jeff Laws. There's just good people all over the place. And then right down the road, Michelle Accardi. She doesn't live too far from me.
Yeah.
and she just took over, as the CEO of Lion and Joe's going to do the CTO thing. I think they're going to be a great team. And, you're just seeing it all over the ecosystem. By the way, I know a lot of people have different opinions, just kind of bringing it out there openly. The naming rights for the arena, right? What
Hmm.
Kaseya did. I
Yeah.
just want to be clear, my camp, I think it was great. I love the fact that we now have a vendor in our ecosystem that can have their name on a building. And ConnectWise has their name inside. If you go to the arena here in Tampa, they sponsor what's called the ConnectWise Loge. And, you're going to see it, and, you see it all the time. They've had that for a couple of years. And so I think, when you see those things, I think it is great. I think, I loved it when Datto and Enable went public. How cool is that? I mean, come on,
Yeah.
guys. 15 years ago, most of outside of the MSP world couldn't even spell MSP. And
Yep.
now we have names on buildings, names in buildings. The biggest PE firms in the world have stakes in our space and our companies. I mean, it's just been great. It's just crazy.
It absolutely
Yeah.
legitimizes this industry, and yeah, I think it is, to your point. I think it's one of those, a rising tide lifts all boats, what have you, and I think, yeah, I think
So,
as we talked about earlier, right? There's been kind of this matriculation or maturing, and started early with some early private equity coming in, and then I think ConnectWise, they kind of set the bar from an acquisition standpoint with PE, and then you've had some go public and go private, and then you've Kaseya and Data. I mean, so yeah, it's really put a stamp on this marketplace, and
well,
it wasn't
but
going to.
here's the opportunity, right? Here's what we got to, we may have 30% maybe of the potential SMBs out there working with MSPs, right?
Yeah.
Think about that alone. And my number could be a little off. I give them a range 20, 30%. That means if we did nothing else and we just continued to focus on, supporting the SMBs, those global SMBs, we can have 3-4 times growth, right?
Yeah.
Nothing else. But here's what's cool. The MSPs are now doing more and more inside the mid-market. And now we're getting into more even on the enterprise side, whether
Yeah.
that's through, after hours and doing some of the other, uh, non-standard stuff that
Hmm.
maybe we do with the SMBs. But, co-managed, it really continues to take off. The upside is we've got a long way to go.
Yeah.
There's a ton of upside, but I do think that there's days of reckonings where we have to make adjustments, and we do have to understand that the primary MSP is still in that 15 to 20 employee range, and there is hundreds of vendors, and we have to figure out how to best, I think, present our wares to them and to support and service them.
Yeah. No,
They blast
you're
us all on Reddit. I mean, we're all guilty. We're all in this together. If you're on the vendor side,
yeah.
we've got to figure out how to be a better partner to our primary customers, the MSPs, and how to find a way to not get into the emotional brouhahas, and how to give them a chance to trial us and experience us without us, calling them 14,000 times a day.
Yeah. Hey, look, it's part of the maturing process. And to your point, right? I mean, it's this. I think it's a really unique time where private equity has legitimized this industry. MSPs are maturing. This move to hybrid, co-managed, up into the mid market. Is increasing the TAM for the MSP. It's increasing the TAM for the vendors. And I wasn't going to bring it up, but if this is a hockey game, so we're in the first 10 minutes of the first period. Um, and I guess. As long as you're not the Tampa Bay Lightning this year. But
Yeah, well, it was a
that's
tough one for me. I figured you'd go there. So
yeah,
I've missed one playoff game in the last 6 years, except for the pandemic when nobody got to go.
yeah,
But I love the Lightning, love the New York Rangers, and both are out.
yeah. That was surprising.
So
Rangers getting bounced or trounced like that, but then
we got
yeah, yeah. But I do feel you know positive for Rob Ray and some of the other long suffering Toronto fans that it's just
first
been.
time in like 20 years they're in the second round. So
Yeah, I mean
yeah,
that's we're fortunate we have the Caps in the Mid Atlantic, but I've been a long suffering Commanders, Washington football team, Washington Redskins, fan, and we've suffered through just years of misery. So I don't know. I'm kind of happy for Rob, and
I'm glad you brought up,
McBain,
like
and
Rob,
yeah,
because, I like just think of my, the early days when you go back the 16 years. And I think, of like Dan, Dan Wensley, who's now at ScalePad, and,
yeah,
and Rob Ray, and then, Charlie Tomeos, and the people, we had our periods of competing, and then of course, partnering, and you're just all over the place. And it's just been fun just watching so many of those, early pioneers, really get the respect and credit for,
yeah,
for helping to build, and
yeah,
there's just like, I think of all the leaders of the big platforms now, and I think of Fred, and I think of Sal at Ninja, and, John at Enable, and Jason at ConnectWise. Look, it's a big responsibility, and the rest of us vendors, we kind of surround those kind of big, larger core vendors, and of course you have Pax8. It's just been so much fun watching them grow.
yeah,
And I just think,
absolutely.
like as we all continue to work together, try to find that way for us as partners to be partners to each other, so that the MSP, our primary shared customers, because make no mistake, they're shared guys, and that we have to make sure we do our best to work together to create a great experience for them.
Absolutely. Look, man, I've kept you here for 40 minutes. We could talk probably for, another 40 at minimum. Always got things to talk about, but so where can people find you out there in the socials, and where can people find CyberFOX?
Yeah, I mean, we're out there online. I mean, we definitely put the Fox out there a lot. We try to have fun with it.
Yeah,
Uh, we're at pretty much every show. We'll see you at the shows. CyberFOX, we're not hard to find. We got kind of cool hats. We created the original kind of cool hats. We see some others emulating us. We think that's
pretty good.
cool. Other
Yeah,
people that want to kind of follow, let's do it. But yeah, and I'm the easy guy to find. I think I'm the only Slutskin on LinkedIn, besides maybe my brother, who is the producer director of Blues Clues, for anybody that has kids. So you'll either find my brother Jeremy, or you're going to find me. There's only two Slutskins I really know of that are out there. So
all right. Well, we'll keep looking for you, and appreciate your time here. And thanks for joining me. And I'm sure we'll see you at some point here in the near future. So thanks for jumping on.
see you, Kevin.